Okay, whether my slides are visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So today we will be starting with the individual group of pesticides one by one. We will see. Today we will try to cover organochlorine as well as organophosphates. If possible, we complete carbamate also. So coming to the first group, organochlorines. This organochlorine group is the oldest group of chemical pesticides. Oldest group of not chemical pesticides, we can say it is organic pesticides. Chemical pesticides include inorganic as well as organic. Among the organic, we can say this one is the oldest group. It's almost about 80 years back the insecticidal properties were discovered. So this organochlorines will just say almost all the pesticides are obsolete now, not widely used now. So we will have a brief discussion about the general properties of the major of organochlorines, and we will slightly discuss about the major pesticides in this group. So organochlorines we have or in organochlorine groups commonly we have it is an organic pesticide. So it invariably it contains a carbon atom along with carbon or mostly it includes hydrogen. Here one typical feature is that we will have a chlorine atom in organochlorine compounds. That's why it is called as an organochlorine. Organic compounds usually have carbon and hydrogen. Most of the organic compounds have carbon and hydrogen. So along with that we have a chlorine atom. Sometimes we will have oxygen atom too. So this is the basic chemical structure of organochlorines. And not a single chlorine atom is present here. We will, in organochlorines, we will have numerous chlorine atoms. Six, mostly DDT, BHC has six, DDT has more than six. So these kind of chlorine, a number of chlorine atoms are present, and there will be number of chlorine to chlorine bonds also will be present. Another thing is that the carbon atom is in the form of benzene ring in organochlorines. All the organochlorine compounds will have a benzene ring or a cyclic structure. Not always they have benzene ring, at least they will have one cyclic structure will be there. So there is whether a benzene ring or cyclic structures. Another typical feature of organochlorine is it is extremely insoluble in water. That means it is apolar or non-polar, and it is having extreme affinity towards lipids or fats. Do anyone know what are non-polar and polar compounds or apolar and polar compounds? Anyone? I told you a few terms: apolar, lipophilic, non-polar, polar. I think you might have studied that in your for your entrance exams and all. What is the difference between a non-polar and polar compound? Anyone? Polar charge separated. Okay. Okay. I will ask one simple question: whether water is polar or not polar? Polar. Okay, that's fine. So anything soluble in water is a polar compound. So hydrophilic substances, say salt, sugar, all are polar compounds because they are extremely soluble in water. So what about oil? Any oil, coconut oil, mustard oil, or any fat content, is it non-polar or polar? Non-polar. Okay, fine. So that's why oil and water are not at all miscible in nature. If you try to mix oil and water together, it remains as a separate layers because oil is non-polar and water is polar. And we have substances or chemicals which is either soluble in lipid or non-polar compound, non-polar solvents or in polar solvents. So there are substances which are lipophilic. That means they are soluble in oils, and there are substances which are hydrophilic. That means they are soluble in water. So organochlorines, it is extremely non-polar in nature. That means it is not at all soluble in water. And it is not at all soluble in water. It is extremely non-polar, and that's because it is having lipophilic nature. That means it is uh, it is having great affinity towards lipids and fats. So what is the significance of the lipophilicity of organochlorines? If you are using any organochlorine pesticide, it immediately gets deposited in fat bodies of the organism. Every organism, living organism, has fat body, and organochlorines has high lipophilicity, affinity towards lipids and fat. So it gets accumulated in the fat body. It is extremely stable in the environment. It doesn't degrade at all. The major disadvantage of an organochlorine pesticide is its chemical unreactivity or its stability in the environment. That means it doesn't degrade in the environment at all. It remains as such in the environment for a longer time, for years together. അതായത് ഒരു ഡി ഡി ടി നമ്മൾ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ബി എച്ച് ഒരു ഓർഗാനോക്ലോറിൻ പെസ്റ്റിസൈഡ് നമ്മൾ യൂസ് ചെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഇറ്റ് വിൽ റിമെയിൻ ആസ് സച്ച് either as DDT or BHC in the environment for a longer time. It's not the case with any other pesticide group. It will immediately degrade in the environment to other metabolites. So what will happen is that once you spray an organochlorine pesticide, it is lipophilic. It gets accumulated in the fat body of the living organism. If another organism, a carnivore, consumes the organism which is having this fat body containing accumulated DDT, BHC or any other organochlorine, this stable the organochlorine pesticide will transfer from the fat body of the first organism to the carnivore which is consuming that organism. I will repeat. Say you are spraying any organochlorine pesticide. It is sprayed on, say, a grass. It is sprayed on a grass. So cattle fed those grass sprayed with organochlorine pesticide. What will happen is that once you spray an organochlorine pesticide, it remains on that grass for a longer time, years together. So once the cattle consumes that grass, this grass along with the organochlorine pesticide will enter into the animal body. And in the animal body, this organochlorine pesticide will be migrating towards the fat body because it is extremely lipophilic in nature. And this lipophilic organochlorine has the tendency to get accumulated in milk. So once you milk that cow, you will get residues of organochlorine pesticides. In 2000, there was a report from one scientist in IRA. Madam's name is Dr. Prem Dureja. Extremely good scientist, extremely good teacher. Dureja madam once reported DDT residues in cow's milk from Punjab and Haryana. Even after 20 to 30 years of the banning of DDT and BHC for agriculture purpose. കൃഷി മേഖലയിൽ കാർഷിക മേഖലയിൽ DDT BHC ബാൻ ചെയ്തിട്ട് 30-40 കൊല്ലത്തിന് മുകളിൽ still we are getting organochlorine DDT residues in. ഇപ്പോൾ അങ്ങനെ കാണാറില്ല, but about 10-15 years back there were reports of organochlorine residues in this cow's milk. Even there are reports that this DDT residues are in organochlorine residues are there in the breast milk of human beings. So that is because of the extreme stability of the chemical as well as the lipophilicity. So that are two factors which are disadvantages for the uh, organochlorines, and because of this nature most of the pesticides are phased out or banned by the various countries. We can classify organochlorines into three groups. First one is DDT and its analogs, and it acts on sodium channels. I think you are now familiar with this, what is sodium channel. And we have two other groups which are acting on GABA receptors. I think from the last class you might have understood gamma aminobutyric acid, which is a neurotransmitter, and we have receptors for binding of this neurotransmitter gamma aminobutyric acid. So we have two groups, one is BHC and its isomers, and cyclodines. So we have three groups of chlorinated hydrocarbons. The first one is DDT and its analogs. Second one is BHC and its isomers. And the third group is cyclodine. DDT acts on sodium channels. BHC and cyclodines acts on GABA receptors. So first we will see DDT. This is the first modern insecticide that I told you. The expansion of DDT is dichloro, diphenyl, trichloroethane. Dichloro, diphenyl, trichloroethane. I will show you. Oh, see, can you see one chlorine atom over here? One chlorine atom over here. So this is dichloro 1, 2, diphenyl, 2 phenyl groups. That's why I told you organochlorines have a benzene ring. Dichloro, diphenyl, trichloro. There are three chlorine atoms. Trichloroethane. This is an ethane chain. CHC. This is ethane. So dichloro, diphenyl, trichloroethane. So that is DDT. It was once synthesized in 1873. That whole thing we discussed by Othna Seidler. Then its insecticidal properties was discovered by Paul Muller in 1939, and he won Nobel Prize for medicine in 1948. And we discussed why he received Nobel Prize and all, because it helped humans to survive from typhus fever, trench fever, etc. during the World War. And one thing is, here we can DDT can have several isomers. I think you are familiar with ortho, meta, para, or configurations in the benzene ring. So here it can be ortho, this is can be meta, and this will be para. So here we can have in any of these options in a DDT molecule, but the para isomer of DDT is the most toxic one. That means chlorine atoms in the two phenyl rings, if it is at the para positions, then they are the most toxic DDT isomer. So the most toxic DDT isomer is para-DDT, and it is the one of the most non-polar compound, and it is practically insoluble in water. So that is why that is the most that's the character common for almost all the organochlorine molecules, and it is effective, very effective against mosquitoes and black flies. Black flies are another group of insects which are transmitting a human disease. It is called as trypanosomiasis. So it's not that a major disease now. Earlier it was a major disease, but nowadays it's not a major disease except in certain African countries. But mosquitoes, it is a major disease. It's a major problem still, and this DDT is still used in India. Also, DDT is permitted for mosquito pest management by public health personnel, not for agriculture purpose. It's not completely banned in our country. And one major disadvantage is that because of its lipophilic nature, it is having bioaccumulation. That's what we discussed. If we spray DDT on grass, cow consume it, it gets transferred to fat, it gets transferred to milk. If you consume the milk, containing this DDT residues, it gets accumulated in our body. So it is called as bioaccumulation. I think you are familiar with. Think have you studied bioaccumulation? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. So this is bioaccumulation. Then comes next pesticide, that is dicophos. Dicophos is a slight change in DDT. You have a hydroxyl group attached to the ethane chain. So because of the presence of hydroxyl group, it becomes polar in nature. If you add a hydroxyl group to it, that molecule becomes polar in nature. It is polar in nature because it is polar, it is degradable, it's not that stable in the environment. And DDT doesn't have any acaricidal activity. That means it is not at all effective against mites. But dicophol is an excellent acaricide. It is an excellent acaricide. That means it is extremely effective against mites. Still, dicophol is used for mite pest management, and it is available in the trade name Hilfol, Mayfol, etc. So, dicophol is one organochlorine still permitted for use in agriculture because it is having a hydroxyl group, and that makes it more vulnerable to breakdown or degradation in the environment. So, it's not that stable as we discussed about DDT and all. Coming to the next one, that is hexachlorohexane. We commonly call it as BHC, benzene hexachloride. But it's not that benzene hexachloride. See, I told you most of the thing organochlorines have benzene ring. Then I told if not benzene, it will have a cyclic structure. You see this structure. It's not benzene, typical benzene. It is a cyclic hexane. That means hexane, which is cyclic in nature. 6 carbon atoms, which are cyclic in nature, and we have 6 chlorine atoms attached to this 6 carbon atoms. So these are hexachlorohexane. So though we call it as BHC, benzene hexachloride also, it's not the right terminology to use. This is the oldest organochlorine pesticide discovered by Michael Faraday in 1825 that we have discussed during the history of pesticide. But its insecticidal properties were discovered pretty later in 1942. So Faraday discovered its BHC, but its insecticidal properties were discovered in 1942. Again, we have 5 isomers, and among the 5 isomers of HCH, the most toxic isomer is gamma HCH, or it is called as lindane. The toxic isomer is gamma HCH because of the, you can see chlorine, the arrangement of chlorine. Because of the arrangement of chlorine, they can have several kind of isomers. So toxic isomer is gamma isomer, and that gamma isomer of HCH is called as lindane. Again, lindane is almost insoluble in water, but compared to DDT, it is relatively soluble in water, and it has some fumigant action also. Though DDT was banned pretty long back for agriculture purpose, HCH was permitted for use. I had seen maybe up to when I was about 15, 16 years old, up to that, I had seen HCH for use. നമ്മുടെ നാട്ടിൽ ഇതിനെ ഉറുമ്പുപൊടി എന്നായിരുന്നു പറഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ടിരുന്നത് because it was used as a dust for the management of ants. ഇപ്പൊ നമ്മൾ ഉറുമ്പുപൊടി എന്ന് പറയുന്നതല്ല, ഇപ്പോഴും ഉറുമ്പുപൊടി എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ മാർക്കറ്റിൽ കിട്ടുന്നുണ്ട്. Earlier HCH was the one which was used as ant dust in households, so it was widely used. Then comes the third group. So among the organochlorine, we have discussed DDT and its analogs, BHA and its isomers. The third group is cyclodines. Cyclodines have several insecticides: clodane, heptachlor, aldrin, dieldrin, endrin, isodrin, endosulfan, etc. Almost all these pesticides except endosulfan was banned pretty long back because of its high persistence and high lipophilicity. All the cyclodines are extremely toxic, highly persistent, highly lipophilic, and it has very long residual life in soil. That means it remains in the soil for a longer time. That's why we call it as high persistence. Among these cyclodines, only endosulfan had very less persistence, and because of that low persistence of endosulfan was widely used in pest management till I forgot in 2000 something year 2000 something Kerala had got banned the use of endosulfan all over the state of Kerala, and endosulfan not because that ban was enforced all throughout the country also, not only in Kerala, all over the country, and it is having some acaricidal property. Most of the organochlorine doesn't have acaricidal activity except we can say dicofol. Dicofol is an excellent acaricide, doesn't have any insecticidal activity. And again, in the endosulfan is insoluble in water. So, are you familiar with the endosulfan issue of Kerala? Yes. Okay. So, any student studying pesticides should have a brief understanding of what happened in Kasaragod. So, what in Kasaragod Plantation Corporation? Anyone from Kasaragod in this class? Anyone?
Yes, sir.
Who is that?
Ashwin.
Ashwin. എവിടെയാണോ വീട്?
Sir, Peria.
ആഹാ, പെരിയ തന്നെയാണോ?
അതെ അതെ.
അതെ, ഓക്കെ. ഇയാളെ സ്പ്രേ ചെയ്യുന്ന കണ്ടിട്ടുണ്ടാവില്ല, ഇയാളൊക്കെ ജനിക്കുമ്പോഴത്തേക്ക് അതൊക്കെ നിന്നുപോയി.
ഇല്ല സർ, കണ്ടിട്ടില്ല. കണ്ടിട്ടില്ല.
ആ, കണ്ടിട്ടില്ല. അശ്വിനൊക്കെ ജനിക്കുന്നതിന് മുമ്പ് നിന്നു. ഇറ്റ് വാസ് about in up to till 1999 പിന്നെ അശ്വിന് അവിടെ എങ്ങനെയാണ് കശുമാവൻ തോട്ടമൊക്കെ ആരുടെ കീഴിലാണ്?
സർ, പ്ലാന്റേഷൻ കോർപ്പറേഷൻ.
പ്ലാന്റേഷൻ. ഇപ്പോഴും കശുമാവൻ തോട്ടങ്ങൾ ഉണ്ടോ അവിടെ പ്ലാന്റേഷൻ കോർപ്പറേഷൻ?
ആ, ഉണ്ട് ഉണ്ട്.
അതിൽ കുറെ ഭാഗം അവർ മാറ്റിയിട്ടുണ്ടല്ലോ, വേറെ ഏതോ പ്രോപ്പർട്ടി ആക്കി പാഷൻ ഫ്രൂട്ട് അങ്ങനെ ഇങ്ങനെ ഡൈവേഴ്സിഫൈ ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. ഓക്കെ. ഈ കാസർഗോഡ് ഡിസ്ട്രിക്റ്റിൽ പശുവിനോട് ചോദിച്ചാൽ അറിയാം, മോസ്റ്റ് ഓഫ് ദി ലാൻഡ് ഇൻ കാസർഗോഡ് ഏരിയ ഇസ് എക്സ്ട്രീംലി ലാറ്ററൈറ്റിക്. ഈ പെരിയ ഏരിയയിലേക്കൊക്കെ ചെന്ന് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഇങ്ങനെ ഉണങ്ങി, വേനൽക്കാലത്ത് ചെന്ന് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഉണങ്ങി പാറപ്പുറം പോലെ കിടക്കുന്ന എക്സ്ട്രീംലി ലാറ്ററൈറ്റിക് പാച്ചാണ്. നമ്മൾ വേസ്റ്റ് ലാൻഡ് എന്ന് വിളിക്കാവുന്ന വേറൊരു ക്രോപ്പ് റേസ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റാത്ത ട്രാക്സ്. സോ ഇൻ ദോസ് ട്രാക്സ് ഗവൺമെന്റ് അസൈൻ ദോസ് ലാൻഡ് ടു എ ഗവൺമെന്റ് കോർപ്പറേഷൻ, പ്ലാന്റേഷൻ കോർപ്പറേഷൻ ഓഫ് കേരള, and they started cultivating cashew in those. In cashew, we have an extremely serious pest called as tea mosquito bug. And this tea mosquito bug is a very serious pest, completely devastates the crop. So because of the large area of these plantations, they have, Plantation Corporation has about 3 or 4 plantations in Kasaragod itself. One is in Chimeni, another one is in Peria, and one more in എവിടെയാണോ അശ്വിനെ? 3 ഇല്ലേ പ്ലാന്റ് പി സി കെക്ക് അവിടെ? ഒന്ന് ചീമേനിയാണ്, ഒന്ന് പെരിയ, ഒരെണ്ണം കൂടെ ഉണ്ട്. അറിയോ അശ്വിനെ? എന്തായാലും കാസർഗോഡ് അവർക്ക് 3 എസ്റ്റേറ്റ് ഉണ്ട്. ഓൾ ആർ വെരി ബിഗ് എസ്റ്റേറ്റ് വിച്ച് ആർ ഹാവിംഗ് എ ഹ്യൂജ് ഏരിയ. So what they did was, Kerala Agriculture University had a recommendation, because this infestation starts with the flushing season of the cashew. Kashmavu taliridumba thottu this mosquito will come. So we had 3 recommendations. One spraying Quinalphos during the flushing stage. Then the second spray used to coincide with flowering stage. Flowering the samayatana second spray, and that time the recommendation was endosulfan. And the third was during the fruiting stage. At that time the recommendation was carbaryl, another pesticide. At the flowering stage, endosulfan was recommended because endosulfan was less harmful to honeybees, which is the major pollinator in cashew. So that was the rationale behind the recommendation from Kerala Agriculture University. But Plantation Corporation carried out 2 sprays, though KU recommended 3 sprays. Plantation Corporation carried out 3 sprays, and these 3 sprays carried out only 2 sprays. Though KU recommended 3 sprays, PCK did only 2 sprays in a year, and those 2 sprays were with endosulfan alone. They didn't change the pesticide, they didn't rotated the pesticides. So with the same, they continued the spray for about 20 years or so. So they used to spray this huge tract with helicopters. Helicopters were the one which they employed for spraying endosulfan. And this, though there were certain guidelines prescribed for at the time of spraying and all, people used to not worry about those things. I think you are familiar with Dr. K.M. Srikumar. Actually, nowadays he is in news for the last 2 weeks. He is a professor. He is my teacher. He is a resident of Kasaragod district, born and brought up in Kasaragod. His home is close to Plantation Corporation estate. So Srikumar sir used to tell that whenever at that time cashew was a major crop in Kasaragod. In every household they will have cashew. So whenever the sprays were carried out, on the day of spray, the Plantation Corporation employees will fix a flag at the border of the estate, because the pilot who is flying the helicopter should know the boundary of the estate. So in order to know the boundary of the estate, at the boundary, the employees of Plantation Corporation will install flags high above the tree level. അപ്പൊ ആ കൊടി കണ്ടു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഇവിടെയാണ് ബൗണ്ടറി എന്ന് മനസ്സിലാവും, അവിടം വരെ സ്പ്രേ ചെയ്ത് വെച്ച് പൈലറ്റ് തിരിച്ചു പോകും. അതായിരുന്നു. So what the local people used to do is that once the employee fixes the flag and move away, they will remove the flag and keep it at their borders. ആ കൊടി മാറ്റിയിട്ട് അവരുടെ അതിരിലേക്ക് മാറ്റി വയ്ക്കും. So what the advantage was that the pilot will think that the border is somewhat far away, and their cashew plantations also will get sprayed, freely sprayed from Plantation Corporation. So that was one thing. And Srikumar sir was the first person in 1999 to argue for the banning of aerial spray of endosulfan. He was the first person. He was very active in Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad. So he first in the Shastra Sahitya Parishad meeting, he put forth the recommendation for the banning of aerial spray of endosulfan, and later on that movement caught on. But later the slight politics entered into that endosulfan issue. It became a strategy to give some form of financial assistance to people in those areas. So Srikumar sir, along with Dr. K.D. Prathapan from another professor from Vellayani, they undertook a study. What they studied was the level of disabilities. Did you see a few pictures of endosulfan victims in certain magazines, newspapers, etc.? Kids with a lot of disabilities, grown up head, deformed yes. So what Srikumar sir and Prathapan sir did was, they studied the number of disabled persons in the panchayats of Peria, Chimeni, this Plantation Corporation, all those panchayats adjacent to Plantation Corporation estates. That means they are all affected area. Because every panchayat is having that database. Whenever we are carrying out a health census, every 10 years, government is carrying out a health census to know the disease conditions in each panchayat. So that health census, each panchayat is having number of persons with disabilities, and they compared the number of persons with disabilities in other unaffected panchayats in Kasaragod and other panchayats of the Kerala state from other districts where endosulfan was not at all used as aerial spray. And that results were published in journal called Current Science. Current Science is a journal published by Indian Institute of Science. It is considered as the foremost science journal in the country, and that journal they published that article, and that article they proved that there is no increase in the level of disabilities in the endosulfan sprayed areas. അതായത് എൻഡോസൾഫാൻ സ്പ്രേ ചെയ്യുന്ന ഏരിയാസിൽ വാട്ട് എവർ ദ വിഷ്വൽസ് ദാറ്റ് വി നോർമലി സീ മേക്സ് us understand that there are a lot of people with high level of disabilities in those areas. But based on the data available with the government itself, it says that the number of persons with disabilities is not higher than other areas was endosulfan was not sprayed, even in other parts of. അതിൽ രസം എന്താന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ എൻഡോസൾഫാൻ ഉപയോഗിക്കാത്ത ചില മേഖലകളിൽ കാസർഗോഡിനേക്കാൾ കൂടുതൽ ഈ പറയുന്ന ഡിസബിലിറ്റീസ് ഉണ്ട്. സോ ദോ ശ്രീകുമാർ sir argues that the spray is continuous spray of endosulfan for prolonged period, and that too in the aerial manner, was not at all acceptable. It should have been banned, and the banning was correct move. But whatever an issue you see, whatever a health issue you observe in this and Kasaragod district, usually it gets attributed to endosulfan, and that practice is wrong. Making endosulfan as the culprit for all those happening in Kasaragod district, for all the health issues in Kasaragod district, is a wrong practice. That is what Srikumar sir argues. Ashwin, what is the situation there in Periya now?
സാർ കുറച്ച് പേരുണ്ട്.
കുറച്ച് പേരുണ്ട്.
പക്ഷെ ഇപ്പോ ഹാൻഡിക്യാപ്ഡ് ആയിട്ട് ജനിച്ച എല്ലാം എൻഡോസൾഫാനിലേക്ക് മാറ്റും.
ഹാൻഡിക്യാപ്ഡ് ആയിട്ട് ജനിച്ച എൻഡോസൾഫാൻ ആയിട്ട് മാറ്റും. അതാണ് ശ്രീകുമാർ സാർ ആർഗ്യൂ ചെയ്യുന്നത്. ഒരു കുട്ടി ഹാൻഡിക്യാപ്ഡ് ആയിട്ട് ജനിച്ചു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ അശ്വിൻ കണ്ടിട്ട് പോലുമില്ല എൻഡോസൾഫാന്റെ ഹെലികോപ്റ്റർ. അതായത് ഏതാണ്ട് 22 കൊല്ലമായി എൻഡോസൾഫാൻ ആ സ്ഥലത്ത് സ്പ്രേ ചെയ്തിട്ട്. ഈ 22 കൊല്ലം ആയിട്ട് നിർത്തിവെച്ചതായി ഇപ്പോഴും ഒരു കുട്ടി ഡിസബിലിറ്റിയോട് കൂടി ജനിക്കുകയാണെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അതിനെ ആട്രിബ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നത് എൻഡോസൾഫാനിലേക്കാണ്. അതാണ് അവിടെ ഉള്ളത്. ഒരു സമയത്ത് അശ്വിന് ഒക്കെ അറിയുണ്ടോ എന്ന് എനിക്കറിയില്ല. ശ്രീകുമാർ സാർ ഒരിക്കൽ എഴുതിയിട്ടുണ്ട്, ഈ പെരിയയിൽ നിന്നൊക്കെ കല്യാണം ആലോചിച്ചു കഴിഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാല് കല്യാണം നടക്കാത്ത അവസ്ഥയുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. കാരണം അവർക്ക് കുട്ടികൾ ഉണ്ടാവില്ല, അവർക്ക് എല്ലാവർക്കും ക്യാൻസർ ആണ്. അങ്ങനത്തെ കഥകൾ കേട്ടിട്ടുണ്ടോ അശ്വിൻ? അപ്പോ ഇത് ഒരു തെറ്റായ കാര്യം നടന്നു. പക്ഷെ അതുകൊണ്ട് പിന്നീട് ആ തെറ്റിനെ വേറൊരു തെറ്റും കൊണ്ടല്ല ന്യായീകരിക്കേണ്ടത് എന്നാണ് ശ്രീകുമാർ സാർ എപ്പോഴും പറയുന്നത്. അതിന് കാണുന്നതെല്ലാം എൻഡോസൾഫാൻ ആണ്. അപ്പോ സയൻസ് ഹാസ് ഇറ്റ്സ് ഓൺ സ്റ്റാൻഡ്. ശാസ്ത്രത്തിൻ്റെതായ ഭാഗത്ത് നിന്നാണ് കാര്യങ്ങൾ പറയുന്നത്. അതിന് സ്റ്റാറ്റിസ്റ്റിക്സും കാര്യങ്ങളും ഒക്കെ നോക്കിയാണ്. അല്ലാതെ നമ്മൾ എപ്പോഴും കാണുന്നത്, ഇപ്പോ നമ്മളൊക്കെ ഒരു ശ്രീകുമാർ സാറിന്റെ ഇപ്പോഴത്തെ ഇഷ്യൂ ഒക്കെ ഇലക്ഷനുമായിട്ട് ബന്ധപ്പെടാം. ഞങ്ങളൊക്കെ ഒരു ഇലക്ഷൻ ഡ്യൂട്ടിക്ക് പോവുകയാണെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ, ഒരു ഇലക്ഷൻ ഡ്യൂട്ടിയിൽ ഒരു ബൂത്തിൽ, ഒരു വാർഡിൽ ഞങ്ങൾ പോകുന്ന ഒരു ബൂത്തിൽ ഏതാണ്ട് 1000 വോട്ടർമാരുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ എവരി 1000 വോട്ടർ വി വിൽ ഗെറ്റ് അറ്റ്ലീസ്റ്റ് 5 or 6 persons with any of disabilities. ഏത്, ഞാനിപ്പോ മലപ്പുറം ജില്ലയിൽ പല ഇലക്ഷൻ നിന്നു, തൃശ്ശൂർ ജില്ലയിൽ പല ഇലക്ഷൻ നിന്നു, എവിടെ ചെന്നാലും that number remains almost the same. So that is what we observe in Kasaragod also. So that is with respect to endosulfan. If we discuss about endosulfan, you should have, I don't want you to think that whatever you see in Kasaragod is, don't think my viewpoint is correct or Srikumar sir's viewpoint is correct. നിങ്ങൾക്ക് അശ്വിൻ്റെതായ വ്യൂ പോയിന്റ് ഉണ്ടാകും. കാരണം അശ്വിൻ അവിടെ ജനിച്ചു വളർന്ന ആളാണ്. ബാക്കിയുള്ളവര്, നിങ്ങൾ അശ്വിനോട് ചോദിക്കുക എന്താണ് അവിടുത്തെ സിനാരിയോ. Try to get a first-hand information. Try to read as much as information from possible, not from social media posts and all, from literature published by several persons. Several persons are discussed pro and against. So read all those things. Try to have an understanding on your own. നിങ്ങൾക്ക് സ്വന്തം വ്യൂ പോയിന്റ് സൃഷ്ടിച്ചെടുക്കാം. അത് എൻഡോസൾഫാൻ ഇപ്പൊ നടക്കുന്നതിന് അനുകൂലമാകാം, എതിരാകാം, ഏതായാലും. But that should be a well thought out decision or a well thought out idea. Okay. So that is with respect to organochlorines. We will move on to the next group, that is organophosphates. Organophosphates is one of the one of the largest group of pesticide, and it is one of the highestly toxic pesticides in the discovered so far. There are large number of pesticides in this organophosphorus group, and all of them are extremely toxic. And as I told you, all these organophosphorus pesticides were developed as a byproduct of World War II that we discussed. The Nazi concentration camps and all. They tested these organophosphorus pesticides on human beings. And this group of pesticides were first developed in 1930 in Germany. Germany, in the Nazi Germany, was the cradle for all these developments. First developed by a scientist named Gerhard Schrader. And all of them are acute poison. That means if you consume an OP insecticide, you will get killed instantaneously. So these are acute poison. What is the difference between acute and chronic? What is the difference between acute poison and a chronic poison? പതുക്കെ പതുക്കെ കൊല്ലുന്നതിന് എന്താ പറയുന്നത്? Any chemical which causes any adverse effect in a longer period. That means if you consume a particular chemical over a longer period and you will have some adverse effect after very long time, is called as acute or chronic. Chronic. It is called as chronic. If you have, if a chemical causes any instant effect, this is called as acute. I will explain it further. If you consume small quantity of pesticide continuously over your lifetime, after several years you may have some health impact, and that is called as chronic effect. That means if you consume a quantity, very low quantity, but you consume it regularly, and it will have some adverse effect. One thing that I will tell is the use of tobacco, smoking. Tobacco, nicotine is not a acute poison, because if you take a puff of cigarette, you will not die. Or if you smoke at least 20 or 30 cigarettes a day, you will not get killed. But if you continuously use cigarettes for about 20-30 years, you can have some adverse health impact. That is chronic effect, not acute. But acute effect is something, someone consumes a poison, gets killed instantaneously. That is acute poison. So organophosphates are acute poison, and unlike organochlorines, these are extremely unstable in the environment, non-persistent. That is one basic advantage if we compare organophosphate and organochlorines. That means if you spray it in the environment, it degrades quickly. It doesn't remains in the environment for a longer time. Another thing is that organophosphates have several kind of pesticides. We have insecticides, we have acaricides, we have fungicides, we have herbicides, we have nematicides in this organophosphate group. Have you studied this fungicide classification, chemical classification of fungicides? Yes or no? Yes. Have you studied about an organophosphate fungicide? Have you heard about a fungicide called Edifenfos? Edifenfos? Yes. This Edifenfos is an organophosphorus fungicide. Have you studied about an OP herbicide, organophosphorus herbicide? Can you name it? Did you see what is that organophosphorus herbicide? It is glyphosate. Glyphosate is an organophosphorus herbicide. So OP group has several insecticides, acaricides, fungicides, herbicides, nematicides, etc. So many of them are having contact activity. Some of them are having systemic activity. A few of them are having fumigant activity. One typical feature is that almost all the organophosphorus pesticides are having an offensive odor, extremely offensive odor. ഒരു രൂക്ഷ ഗന്ധമായിരിക്കും അതിനുണ്ടാവുന്നത്. And their mode of action is they are inhibitors of acetylcholine esterases. You know what is an acetylcholine esterase, and they act on acetylcholine esterase and affect the nervous transmission. Coming to the advantages of organophosphorus insecticide, they have broad spectrum activity. That means, as told you, they are having insecticidal activity, acaricidal activity, nematicidal activity. So there are certain organophosphorus pesticides which are effective against insects, mites, as well as nematodes. It is broad spectrum activity. And another thing is that if you spray any pesticide in a field, it will kill almost all the insects in that field, irrespective of the kind of insect. It will kill a butterfly, it will kill a grasshopper, it will kill a caterpillar, it will kill a fly, bugs, etc. So almost all groups of insects it will kill. So it is having broad spectrum activity, insecticidal and acaricidal activity. I told you it is having low persistence. That's one typical feature of all organophosphorus pesticide when compared to organochlorines. Then there are some of them are having systemic properties, so it is effective against sucking pests. The systemic property is there. Unlike organochlorine pesticides, they does not bioaccumulate, so there is no chance of bioaccumulation. So that is one advantage compared to organochlorine. And compared to organochlorine, the quantity of pesticide per unit area is low. Organochlorine pesticide, we used to have about 2000 gram active ingredient per hectare. OP, it's usually 500 to 1000 gram active ingredient per hectare. So half or one fourth of the quantity is only required, and it gets easily detoxified. So it's not at all stable. Unlike organochlorines, it gets detoxified in animal tissues. So the advantages are broad spectrum, insecticidal, acaricidal. We can say it is some of them have nematicidal activity too. It is not persistent at all, so it does not bioaccumulate. It gets detoxified easily. Some are having systemic property, and the quantity required per unit area is also low. So OP insecticides are further classified into different subclasses: phosphates, phosphorothioates, phosphorodithioates, phosphorodithioates. There is one spelling mistake. There is no I over here. Phosphorodithioate, phosphorothiolate, phosphonate, and phosphoroamidate. I will repeat. There are 6 subclasses: phosphate, phosphorothioate, phosphorodithioate, phosphorothiolate, phosphonate, and phosphoroamidate. I will show you how it comes. It is pretty easy to understand. All of them are modifications or esters of phosphoric acid. I will show you how it is. This is phosphoric acid, H3PO4, P double bond O with 3 hydroxyl group, H3PO4. So this is phosphoric acid. So any organic compound, organophosphorus compound has a structure like this. This hydrogen, this hydrogen, this hydrogen, and this oxygen can be replaced with side chains or other atoms to form different pesticide molecule. So that's why the general formula of OP compound is written as P double bond O, OR, OR, OR. So all the basic core structure is that of phosphoric acid, and there will be modifications in the side chain to make different organophosphorus pesticide. So we can see the different subclasses based on the structure. In the phosphate group of organophosphorus pesticides, the same basic structure as an OP compound. There is not much difference. There is a, just a minute. P double bond O, P O O O. This, there will be a side chain over here, here, here. That's the only thing. The basic structure remains the same as that of the basic structure of a OP compound. Coming to phosphorothioate, the only change is that the O double bond O will be replaced with a thiol group or a sulfur group. So that is phosphorothioate. Remember thioate, where the double bond O is replaced with sulfur. Then we have phosphorodithioate. Di means two. Dithiol means two sulfur atoms. So we will have a sulfur atom replacing the double bond oxygen, and there will be one more sulfur atom attached to phosphorus, directly attached to phosphorus, replacing another oxygen, single bond oxygen. So phosphate, all P will be bonded to oxygen atoms. In phosphorothioate, double bond oxygen will be replaced with a thiol group or sulfur group. In phosphorodithioate, two sulfur atoms are there. One will be attached to the double bond O position, and the other one is a single bond oxygen position. When comes phosphorothioate, the difference between phosphorothioate and phosphorothioate is that in phosphorothioate there is only a single sulfur atom thiol group. It is attached to single bond oxygen position. It replaces a single bond oxygen. So that is phosphorothioate. Then we have phosphonate. In phosphonate, in the position of oxygen, a single bond oxygen, we have a carbon atom. That is phosphonate. Then we have phosphoroamidate. In a phosphoroamidate, instead of a single bond oxygen, we have a nitrogen. That is amide group. That is phosphoroamidate. Then we have phosphoroamidothioate. So in amidothioate, what will happen is that there will be an amido group as well as thioate, thiol group. That means double bond oxygen will be replaced with sulfur. You can see double bond oxygen will be replaced with a sulfur. So it's pretty easy to understand the various subclasses of OP compounds. Phosphate, the basic structure is the same, P double bond O O O. In phosphorothioate, double bond oxygen will be replaced with sulfur. Phosphorodithioate, double bond oxygen and a single bond oxygen will be replaced with sulfur. Phosphorothioate, single bond oxygen will be replaced with sulfur. Phosphonate, single bond oxygen will be replaced with carbon. Phosphoroamidate, single bond oxygen will be replaced with nitrogen. Phosphoroamidothioate, single bond oxygen will be replaced with nitrogen, and double bond oxygen will be replaced with sulfur. Are you clear? The classification of OP pesticides. The subclasses. If you are asked anything about OP pesticides, just give the general characters, advantages, draw the basic structure of the subclasses, draw phosphoric acid, the basic structure of OP compounds, and slightly change the double bond oxygen to S or single bond oxygen to S or carbon nitrogen. You can replace it. It's pretty easy to understand. And give in each group you give at least a few examples. In each group you give at least a few examples. I have given a few pesticides as examples in each group. We have dichlorose, phosphoamidone, monoprotophos, TEP is tetraethyl pyrophosphate, tetraethyl pyrophosphate. All those belongs to the phosphate group. In phosphonate group, only the trichlorphone is there. In phosphorothioate, in thioate means double bond oxygen will be replaced with sulfur. We have parathion, methylparathion, phenethion, phenitrophenone, chlorpyrifos, diazinon, methyldamadone, quinalphos, triazofos, etc. In phosphorodiethioate, we have phorate, ethion, malathion, dimethoate, phosphorone, etc. In phosphoroamidothioate, we have acephate and methamidophos. Here, one thing you should understand is that there are large number of OP pesticides, but those pesticides which are still used in agriculture is extremely low. If I give you a list, uh, phenethion and phenitrophenone, just a minute here, this phenethion and phenitrophenone. This phenethion, phenitrophenone, it's not widely used in Kerala, but it is used outside Kerala. Chlorpyrifos and quinalphos, these two are widely used in Kerala. Dimethoate and malathion is still used, and acephate. Even though there are large number of pesticides, less than 10 pesticides are nowadays used in our country, and in Kerala, less than 5 or 6 pesticides are mostly used in Kerala. Other all pesticides are banned or not at all used. And I will give a small, move a bit quickly because almost all of these pesticides are obsolete, not at all used. Tetraethyl pyrophosphate, TEP, the importance is only that this is the first OP insecticide used in agriculture. It is extremely toxic. LD50 is 1 milligram per kg. Lethal dose 50. Do you know what is lethal dose 50? Does anyone know what is lethal dose 50? Kill 50 percentage of the test population. The dose required to kill 50 percentage of the test population. So LD50, if the value is extremely low, it means it is extremely toxic. 1 milligram of tetraethyl pyrophosphate is sufficient to kill a population of 1 kg animal or any organism. If you take one rabbits all weighing 1 kg, 100 numbers, and you administer 1 milligram of tetraethyl pyrophosphate to all the 100 rabbits weighing 1 kg, the 50 numbers of the rabbits may get killed. So that is extremely toxic. 1 milligram is extremely small amount. Then we have dichlorvos. Dichlorvos is also now banned from last December 31st onwards. It's banned, but its uniqueness was that it is having contact and fumigant action. Remember, it's a usual question. The organopesticide with fumigant action. The example is dichlorvos. Remember this. Usually you ask us a one-word question. It is having rapid knockdown effect. That is because of the fumigant action. Another advantage is it is extremely non-persistent. If you spray dichlorvos today, by next day all the residues will be gone. So that's why it is extremely non-persistent in nature. It's available in the trade name Nuvan and Doom. But don't worry about the trade names because it is banned now. Coming to phosphomidone, again, this pesticide is banned. It is systemic in nature, extremely toxic, 17 to 30 milligram per kg. I'll just quickly go through it because all those pesticides are now obsolete, but you should have a small understanding of this old pesticides, their name, etc. Phosphomidone, OP insecticide, systemic one, highly toxic, effective against sucking pests. Then monocrotophos and phosphomidone, both of them are uh, have common characters. Systemic pesticides, toxic, have acaricidal property. Most of the OP insecticides are having acaricidal properties also. Just a minute. Okay, I will finish it here. Any doubts? You need any clarifications?